Now more than ever, UK public sector organisations need to embrace new technologies and implement new strategies at pace. And that's why you can count on Freeth's dedicated public sector team to provide expert legal advice that helps you engineer change and deliver social value. A top 50 law firm with a top ranking in public sector work in the Legal 500, our extensive portfolio of clients and more than 25 years' experience covers local authority companies, fire and police authorities, schools, colleges, universities and NHS bodies. Recent projects include helping local authorities to repurpose their town centres to respond to rapidly evolving consumer shopping trends, implement new fibre networks to assist communities and businesses, and introduce sustainable, green technology innovations such as on-street car charging points and hydrogen-powered buses. With education, our legal advice covers all areas, such as helping schools to become part of academy trusts, sector-specific procurement, special needs facility construction, research grants, and regulatory compliance. Whatever your legal services requirement, our expert advice and free-thinking approach will help your public sector organisation overcome any barriers to delivering transformation. Freeth's Public Sector, helping you deliver transformation and social value.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Sector Showcase event as part of Freeth's Sector Week. And today's morning session covers the public sector in particular. My name's Nathan Holden. I'm chairing today's event. I'm a partner here at Freeths, based in our Birmingham office, and I lead our public sector practice. Before we begin, just one minor point of housekeeping. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, as that way we can pick up the questions later on and deal with them properly. So please do that if you have any questions, and feel free to raise any questions that you have, because clearly that's what this whole exercise is about. Now, I've introduced myself. I'm now just going to introduce everybody else that's on today's panel. Firstly, the Freeths representatives. Mitchell and Hannah, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, morning all. So my name's Mitchell Ball. I'm a partner at Freeths in the Birmingham office in the real estate team. My day job is property development work. My colleague Hannah, who I'll pass over to, also works with me.
So I'm Hannah Greatbatch. I'm an associate in the Birmingham team, as Mitchell's just said, also in commercial property.
Thanks, Hannah. We're also very lucky today to have an external speaker. Chris, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name's Chris Hipkiss. I'm an independent consultant. I'm a consultant for Cherwell District Council and the lead direct in terms of their town centre regeneration, and in particular Castle Quay shopping centre and the new leisure development, as well as canal side regeneration within the town of Banbury.
Thanks, Chris. Now, one of the key challenges that local authorities up and down the land are facing is, what do they do with their local high streets? The concept of people coming together to buy and sell goods from physical settlements goes back, I think, perhaps as far as the Roman times, and up until quite comparatively recently, and say 20 or 30 years ago, it was the main way that we bought our goods and services. High streets, however, have been under threat for some time, and even by then, 20 or 30 years ago, out-of-town shopping centres and retail parks were beginning to chip away at their supremacy. But of course, things have radically changed in the last few years. You only have to walk through our towns and cities to see what online shopping and latterly the COVID pandemic has done to our high streets, leaving empty shop units and windswept precincts. These changes have had a major impact on local authorities, given how important business rate generation is to their coffers, and not to mention the hollowing out effect that these changes have had. So by way of a background to what we're about to talk about today, and what we're about to discuss, back in 2014, we were appointed by Cherwell District Council to help advise on proposals to enhance an existing shopping centre at Castle Quay. Clearly in those days, the plans were slightly less ambitious than they've become as a product of the events and circumstances that have followed. And now I'd like to pass you over to Mitchell Ball, who will just explain a little bit about Freeths' involvement in the project.
Thanks, Nathan. We've got some slides I'll bring up to outline this project. So as Nathan says, we were first instructed in 2014 by Cherwell District Council, and we've worked closely with the council on this project since then. Broadly, there are two elements here. There's a Castle Quay shopping centre, which is the main centre in Banbury shopping centre. There's then what we called Castle Quay 2, which is essentially an extension of the shopping centre and is broadly leisure-based. At the time of our appointment in 2014, the shopping centre was in private ownership. It was owned by Aberdeen Standard Investments. And before our appointment, Aberdeen had made a planning application for the substantial redevelopment of the shopping centre to form this leisure add-on. That planning application was made in 2013, and I mention these dates because they give a perspective on the timeline for this type of development. The project, as we'll see shortly, is nearing completion, but broadly we're looking at a decade in the making. So if we look at the next slide to try to get a perspective of the centre, the areas shown green are what have traditionally been the shopping centre, Castle Quay, originally constructed in the 1970s as a castle centre, substantially extended in the late 90s, and Castle Quay, as it's been for some time as a shopping centre, is opened in early 2000. What I would say about this shopping centre is that it's even before the recent redevelopment, it's in reasonable shape. It's not unattractive, still relatively fresh looking, but these challenges that Nathan has outlined were still there, an over dependency on traditional retailing, business rates, and all of the other challenges that we know about that our high streets and shopping centres face. There was an additional pressure that came about. In 2015, the Banbury Gateway Retail Park opened on the M40 junction at Banbury junction of the M40. This is a large out-of-town retail park. It hosts what I believe to be the largest Marks and Sparks in Europe, and that was a further impetus to transform the town centre of Banbury as a fight back against that. But as I say, there was a need for reshifting anyway away from pure retail. So if we look at the next slide, the redevelopment was broadly, as I say, to add what I call a sort of leisure add-on to the core retail centre, and that leisure add-on focused around the main the main car parking areas. That's one of the car parks. That was called the North Car Park, and what in very simple terms the council has done is to take those car parks and change them away from being single-purpose car parking to leisure facilities that retain a good degree of car parking, but add something to the centre in addition to that parking. So if we look at the next slide, it shows us some uses. What the development brings is a Premier Inn hotel, multi-screen cinema, bowling facilities, a whole host of restaurants and bars, and a new little food store. And as you can see, uses there to diversify away from the pure retail offering, to draw people to the centre, to make it a destination where people will want to come during the daytime, during the night time, and diversify the offering. So we look at the next slide, please. So just winding back again, if we go back to 2014, when Freeths became involved, the shopping centre Castle Quay was in private ownership, owned by Aberdeen Standard Investments, and wanted to bring about redevelopment. Had made a planning application, as I say, for this leisure add-on to the shopping centre that was to be called Castle Quay 2. But Aberdeen faced a number of challenges and approached Cherwell Council to discuss those challenges and to see whether the council could assist. And those are the challenges that are faced by town centres up and down the country. There's a mix of ownerships. Some ownership here vested in the council itself, other third-party landowners not necessarily wanting to sell, so possible need for CPO involvement, and an emerging viability issue in the sense of the end value costs rising all the time, and the prospect of the end value of this development not warranting the costs that need to be spent on it, or certainly not covering the costs as well as a developer profit. So, as I say, the council were approached by the developer to see if the council could assist. So if we look at the next slide, please. So, as I say, the approach was broadly around 2014. That was when we were involved to work with the council and its external property consultant, Montague Evans, to see how the council could support the scheme whilst staying within best consideration, state aid and procurement requirements. And to cut a long story short, a development agreement was put in place to enable the council to provide that assistance, to make land available, to use CPO if necessary. And whilst the council couldn't make direct financial contributions to bridge viability gaps, there were some means that could be used to assist in that regard. One of those was income strip leases, where the council could stand behind some of the uses, could take long-term leases on the car parks, for example, so as to provide a guaranteed income flow to the council, to the shopping centre owner, and enhance the end capital value for the investor. The council was also able to make direct contributions towards some of the public realm areas at the centre. So the development agreement was put in place. As I say, that was 2017. Unfortunately, the tide was such that the tide and the trends were such that, notwithstanding having secured a development agreement to support the scheme, the shopping centre owner nevertheless decided that he did want to sell Castle Quay before commencing the Castle Quay 2 development. That was around about the time Chris Hipkiss, who we'll hear from shortly, became involved, and the shopping centre owner decided it wanted to sell, and the council decided to purchase itself. So the council purchased both the Castle Quay shopping centre and the embryonic development site for Castle Quay 2, the leisure development. And since that time, the council has developed out Castle Quay 2 by way of direct development itself. So if we look at the next slide, please. So the shopping centre was purchased by the council in early 2018, and the work that Freeths have done since then has been twofold. My colleague Hannah, who I'll hand over to in a moment, has worked on the lettings within the shopping centre, and I've looked after the Castle Quay 2 leisure redevelopment that's involved a whole host of work streams and colleagues, so procurement, land assembly, lettings, planning 106, highways agreements, canal and river trust documentation, because the development spans the Oxford Canal, and a whole host of construction documents to manage the construction risks, so working on frameworks, construction contracts, warranties, and professional appointments. A whole host of work. I've certainly learned a lot from the project. If we look at the next slide, please. The project is now drawing to completion. You see on the left-hand side of the Oxford Canal. So this photograph I took when I visited in January of this year, and this is taken from the new walkway that spans the Oxford Canal. On the left, you can see the Premier Inn, which is built as an addition to the old South Car Park, which you can just see behind the Premier Inn, which is a tall building. On the right-hand side of the canal, that is a new leisure block. So if you remember car park photograph I showed some time back, that is now a leisure block, lots of bowling, multi-screen cinema, a whole host of restaurant units. The hotel is open, the leisure block is nearing completion, and I have to say that even on a grey January morning, it looked absolutely superb. It was a very bold decision back in 2017, 2018 on the council's part to make this investment. And I think it was a superb decision. You can only imagine on a warm summer's evening the hustle and bustle that this will bring to the centre of Banbury as people spill out of those bars and restaurants along the waterfront. So that's the Castle Quay 2 development. As I say, Hannah has worked during this time on the shopping centre, the traditional shopping centre that we call Castle Quay. And I'll let Hannah just explain some of the work that we've been doing on that front.
Thanks, Mitchell. So as Mitchell said, following the council's acquisition of the centre, Freeths have continued to work closely with the council's in-house legal team and their managing agents, Montague Evans, in respect of the day-to-day management of the centre. To create unison and in the interest of efficiency, Freeths have created a suite of precedents to include both a short and long-term lease, licences to occupy, rent deposit deeds, and licences to alter. This helps to ensure the introduction of new tenants and lease renewals runs as quickly and smoothly as possible. The outbreak of the pandemic, and in particular the restrictions on the retail and hospitality industry, resulted in new challenges. The council was keen to provide the necessary support to its tenants during this difficult time, and throughout the pandemic, Freeths have continued to work closely with the council to help find solutions to support tenants, whilst continuing the success of the centre as a whole. You'll all be familiar with the loss of some of the UK's largest department stores. The centre itself has been impacted by this, and at one stage there was large units being unoccupied. However, Cherwell recognised this as an opportunity to create something new and exciting for both consumers and independent businesses. This resulted in the creation of the Lock 29 project. This concept allows businesses to take short, flexible occupation and creates a vibrant and ever-changing hub of activity. Not only does this assist in local businesses starting up, it also attracts footfall to the centre. Freeths had the privilege of being involved in the Lock 29 project and have created a further suite of documentation to allow short-term, flexible occupation that the council's management team can roll out. I will now hand over to Chris Hipkiss to expand on the Lock 29 project and other exciting developments at the centre.
Thank you very much. And also thank you very much for Freeths to invite me today to give this short presentation. What I'm going to quickly do is just run through some of the key elements. If I could have my slides up. To really run through the purchase, the rationale, the opportunity, and the vision in which we wanted to deliver for our town, the progress to date, and also what the ongoing plan is. All this new exciting opportunity is what's coming next. It's keeping up the momentum of the work in which we've already done. So just really wanted to talk about the purchase and rationale. If I can, next slide, please. So in terms of the key facts which Mitchell has highlighted, CQ1 being the existing shopping centre, consisted of 385,000 square feet, 88 retailers. For a size of Banbury was very ambitious when it was constructed in 2000 or extended in 2000. CDC or Cherwell District Council recognised back in 2016-17 by working with the private developer about the leisure offer that retail was changing, and it was overstretching itself. It was looking at the consumer behaviours and what our town was going to look like. So back then, things were starting to move and change. In terms of a long-standing relationship with their town, Cherwell had an investment of 15% of the shopping centre, and increased that, as Mitchell indicated, in January 2018 with the acquisition. A starting decision had to be made, like most towns and local authorities who invested in their town centres, is to decision to do nothing. It is always an option, but in terms of the community in which it serves, the vibrancy of the town and the well-being of residents, then the local authority took the very bold move to do that. And by owning land provides the ability, to truly make an impact to the town and its residents by the changing which you've done. And certainly on the plan on the right of that slide is the shopping centre highlighted in red, but also to the northeast of that is the leisure centre, which was cut off from the town, and something I will talk about the connectivity of how people move around our town. Next slide, please. Just very quickly is to indicate the influence of the regeneration. As Mitchell already indicated, CQ2, which is highlighted on the top page of where that is, the leisure centre in blue, and also the existing shopping centre in yellow. A new hotel, a little superstore, a new cinema and an entertainment centre, and then some canal restaurants. We're very fortunate to have the canal network and the river running through the middle of the town. It's 250 years old, with the oldest, one of two oldest working boatyards still on the canal network, and history which brings of that. So we really wanted to regenerate, revitalise our town, but bringing forward all those historical elements. Back in 2018, new slide please, about the objectives. So these are the 5 objectives that Cherwell District Council set. We established a cross-party advisory group of council members and officers. So the decision was made that this was bigger than politics, and a cross-party group was formed, and sort of driving the 5 objectives, which is something which is always put at the forefront of every meeting we have still. Delivering Banbury as a destination. Always have a mind on the future proofing, and I'll come on to that later. The overall vision for Banbury, it's not just about Castle Quay, but it's about the wider town, the connectivity. We had connectivity issues where the shopping centre turned its back on the historical canal, and how we would re-engage with that, and about the health and well-being of residents moving around our town. And it's a place to shop, work and leisure. New slide, please. So the changes to our high street there has been a major shift as a result of COVID-19. Was this changing before COVID? Yes, of course. We recognise that with online shopping, etc., and that obviously accelerated through COVID-19. But the evidence of support for a destination, but it's also what has come through from the pandemic is also the health and well-being of residents, and not only that, the mental health. Where do people go to walk? How can they get into the fresh air, which has always been very evident through the pandemic. And we've been working with the NHS in terms of what they're wanting to do within town centres, and how they can help and support their communities. But we've also looked at the recovery within the leisure sector that continues to grow as consumers come out and enjoy the delights of their towns, etc. But we also want that experience, both in terms of retail as well as leisure. So and also finally, it's about the modern ways of working. Some of you will be like myself today, is working from home, but yesterday I was on site and in the office. So it's that flexible workspace, Interestingly, speaking to Chiltern Railways, their business model pre-pandemic was moving people from Banbury into London and back again. Their business model is definitely changing, and we've been engaged with them of how the leisure market can continue to work. So it's looking at our stakeholders. And stakeholder, new slide please, is hugely important. We have been working with Bill Grimsey, who is a high street guru in terms of those, and that name will be familiar to you. But it's also bringing together stakeholders like the museum, the library, etc., and community groups as to what they're wanting to do to bring this forward. So we've done a lot of work with stakeholders. We've got members on the advisory group who go out into the community and find out what people and their community want, etc. So that is hugely important. Next slide, opportunity and vision. So about repurposing Castle Quay has been a primary objective of mine, but it's also looking, certainly through pandemic, is how people wanting to work, and some of these statistics are slightly out of date, but they're very much telling the story of the amount of people who wanting remote working, hybrid working, etc. But also companies wanting to give their staff encouragement to collaborate, and what sort of space that would be. And we've been working with a number of office suppliers in terms of placemaking within our towns, and how first floor retail space could well be reutilized for workspaces and alike. New slide, please. So in terms of the continuation of repurposing Castle Quay, we have been working with a number of these sectors. The leisure in terms of CQ2, utilising space for library, and we've got the new library coming into the shopping centre in the former Marks and Spencer space, but also creating opportunities in terms of education and residential options, which I will come on to shortly. New slide, please. So the repurposing is taking old retail premises and put them into new and exciting, vibrant space that can be utilised for a variety of different reasons. But it also extends the attraction to Banbury, not just for retail, but also for office users, as well as lab use too, which we've seen inquiries coming in from certainly neighbouring Oxfordshire, who may well be wanting to be slightly out of Oxford, with the connectivity of Banbury for the trains to London and to Birmingham, but also the motorway network too. So there's been a variety of different operators who we are engaging with, who are looking to repurpose alongside us and extend the dwell time, and so people can utilise what we're offering. So in terms of repurposing, new slide please. Debenhams, most towns of this size have one. So Debenhams went into receivership, and Freeths very helped us through that process. But we've also now looking to repurpose into health and also office and leisure use within that operation. So one is reducing our footprint in terms of retail, but also de-risking our investment by introducing alternative uses to help complement that. New slide, please. So in terms of Lot 29 and the progress in which we've made, Hannah very diligently explained about the concept of Lot 29. It's an incubator unit for smaller businesses, and that has grown. We opened in the middle of the pandemic, which was more accident than anything else, but that's actually shown a lot of new businesses that people hadn't even thought of or been at home and and wanting to bring new ideas. And we provided this platform through the legal frameworks that the Freeths have done, and it's been a vibrant space that can be utilised for a variety of different reasons. So whether that's arts and crafts, there's a bar in there, there's also retail in there, but there's also an opportunity for hot and food operators to come together and provide that experience, as well as an indoor cinema space that are able to do that. In terms of the hotel and superstore, you can see that the hotel has actually has been completed, as well as the superstore. The cinema and bars and restaurants you'll see on this screen are nearly completed. The light cinema are in the process of undertaking their fit out. We've got some exciting news in terms of the F&B operators who are currently in legals in Hannah's safe hands of getting those across the line. But we're actually delighted in terms of the work in which the light are bringing forward. And new slide, please. And the terrace in which we've created, which is opening in May, possibly due time, is an outside cinema space, which is quite unique to the UK. But again, just bringing alternative uses to to the cinema, and a reason to continue to come to the town. And then finally, the plan really of moving forward is bringing these elements together, repurposing Castle Quay into a vibrant town centre with different uses, and enabling the connectivity of people to walk around our town a lot better, get into green spaces, etc. The residential element, which is slightly off this plan, is a new development called Canalside. Again, utilising the canal network that we are very fortunate to have to run through the middle of our town, and linking together with potentially 700 units along the canal side and adjacent to the railway station. So a real opportunity to bring some social housing as well as alternative uses within a heavily industrialised area of Banbury to again revitalise the town and keep the momentum of change. And thank you very much for having the time to speak to me today.
Thanks, Chris. And Mitchell and Hannah. That was an excellent exposition of the Castle Quay project and what's happened over the last few years. We're now going to move into more of a Q&A type mode, and we've had a few questions that have already come in this morning, and I'm just going to pull those up. And I think the first question is going to be for you, Chris. Do you think the leisure development has future-proofed the centre for the future?
That's a very good question. It was one of the 5 core objectives in which we set ourselves, and yes, we do. So the introduction of leisure was to enhance the rather depleted nighttime economy within Banbury. So it extends the dwell time within the town. Where during the pandemic we've changed our offer on CQ2, so we've kept ourselves up to date in terms of the offering, and certainly working with the cinema operator is to change that, and you've seen that with the terrace works, but also with the introduction of the bowling, etc. So yes, we built a facility and facilities that continue to evolve as time will go on, and that's important to make sure that we are always one step ahead, or try to be one step ahead of the market and what people want.
Thanks, Chris. And one for you, Mitchell. What have been the sort of main legal challenges that we've experienced, or the firm's experienced, in helping CHOA with this project?
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I think the main challenge with Castle Quay 2, the redevelopment, is that if you go back to 2018, the council were essentially stepping into a development proposition of somebody else's design, in a sense. I mentioned earlier the then owners of the shopping centre, Aberdeen Investments, who had an external PLC property developer acting on its behalf as development manager, had made a planning application in 2013, and clearly there would have been a great deal of work in the build up to then. Then from 2013 through to 2018, when the council acquired the proposition, Aberdeen and its development manager had lived and breathed this notion, and then, whilst the council had had some involvement up until then, it had been in a supporting role, and then all of a sudden in 2018, this development site with I'll let Chris comment on development values. Chris, can you give us a ballpark on development values?
Well, in terms of the overall cost?
Yeah, CQ2.
It's about, we're under budget. We're about 70 million.
70 million. So 2018, the council suddenly acquires this site, is committing to that order of expenditure. And I guess the legal challenge was trying to look forward to make sure that we had everything that we needed to be able to deliver that project without anybody being able to trip us up. So did we have all the land? Did we have all of the access rights? Did we have all of the design, ability to use design from other consultants that have been involved, reliance on all technical reports? And that really, I guess, was a challenge, working with the council, other consultants, trying to sort of look forward to see what we might need and what might trip us up. I think we've just about made it. It's nearing completion. Yeah, that was the main concern, I would say, Nathan.
Right, thanks, Mitchell. And another question for you, Chris. Did the council consider including any residential development within the scheme?
We didn't, and haven't, because of the opportunity that we've presented ourselves with Canalside. That may well change as time progresses. We don't take anything off the table, but with the Canalside redevelopment down, which is literally 300 yards down the canal, it gives an opportunity to regenerate and revitalise another area within the town. We're always looking at opportunities. If, for argument's sake, that we didn't have the potential occupiers for Debenhams, that would be an obvious one. But one of the things which we want to make sure that we don't overflood ourselves with residential. We want to get that very fine balance in terms of commercial as well as residential, and making sure that we're providing what occupiers and the community need.
Right, thank you. Thanks, Chris. Question from another one for you, Chris, I think, and possibly even Mitchell, one somewhat technical in nature, is do the tenants in Lock 29 have short-term excluded act leases, ? Is the idea that they will move into main retail area once established, or can they stay within the Lock 29 if appropriate? So it's a bit of a mix of legal and practical. So over to you, Chris, first.
So yes, absolutely. So it's really in the DNA of the council to help and incubate businesses. So we've seen throughout the pandemic, people coming forward and wanting ideas and wanting a stall. It may well be, a stall on a Saturday, and we've seen a number of examples of businesses which started there and have actually grown, certainly through the food and beverage offer that we have there. And absolutely, the idea is that we encourage people to employ people within Banbury, but also to expand, and we've got the facilities. having flexibility and of leases, and Mitch will no doubt say this in a minute, but it's key to that, and it's working in partnership with occupiers, not becoming landlords which become an obstacle, and it's engaging with them. And yes, absolutely, we hope and continue to see them growing into other areas, not within just in Castle Quay, but also within the town too. It's important that as a local authority, we're the whole town. So therefore, you know, we want them to grow, and it's a great success story.
Mitchell?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think back, I mean, it's bonkers how we used to operate leasing, isn't it? If you go back, you know, not that long, in fact. Yeah, some local young person has a dream of a venture, you know, wants to deliver something, needs an outlet. You know, you go back not that long, you know, 10 years or what have you. In order to bring that to the town centre, you're expected to sign up on a 10-year lease, sign a personal guarantee, or get family to support you, and that's if you're looking and some institutional landlord will speak to you. I mean, you contrast that with now, that guy or girl with an idea, with a venture that, you know, wants to pursue. I mean, Hannah, what is the shortest letting somebody could take, say, within lot 29?
So somebody could go in just for a day and test it out. So you could go in for a day, you can go in for a week, a month, and then there is the longer term excluded leases that we have in place as well for some of the tenants that are there on a longer basis. But it has worked with great success, and I understand from Chris that there is actually a waiting list of tenants that want to try and occupy the space, so it's worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, the key with also with these shorter lets is to take away the sort of friction that the legal process can create. You know, the idea that if you want to try a project, you've got to go and instruct a lawyer to negotiate a lease for you that bogs the whole process down. And you know, we had to take that away. I mean, clearly that's there for some of the you know, the more substantive lettings. But if somebody wants to go and take a lease on a license on a short-term basis, say within lot 29, what Hannah's done is create template forms of license that don't need to go through us. The managing agents will just process that. There's no need for the council's lawyers to be involved, and the person who wants to go into the centre doesn't need to instruct a lawyer. They're fair and balanced documents that have been designed to enable people to sign up to them, you know, safe in the knowledge that their position is not being abused in any sense. They do what they say on the tin. They give access for you know, for a defined period on, you know, at the agreed rate, and nothing else.
Thanks, Mitchell. And another question for Chris, probably from someone with way too much local knowledge, if you ask me. But anyway, now that the council has created more space to attract footfall in the north of Castle Quay, what is going to draw people to the existing high street to the south?
Again, a very good question. And not only are we looking at the north, as in the canal side, there's also some interesting opportunities are coming forward in terms of Market Square. Debenhams is our priority at the moment, and also Marks and Spencer's old unit. So those two elements which are facing the south and into Banbury, Market Square is a priority for us, and I will hopefully be able to deliver some good news in that in the months to come.
Thanks, Chris. And another question for you: has the amount of car parking within CQ site, Castle Quay site, increased or decreased?
It has increased in terms of its volume, and that's to take into account the leisure and the supermarket and etc. In terms of, I think it's too early to say whether we've got too much or too little. I think it's, I know the council, which is not part of my remit, is always looking at car parking, but also I think the development needs to open to continue to assess that. There's also when we're introducing further opportunities for workspace, etc., we will have to take that into consideration. But we're very mindful of the opportunity to walk to work and cycle, and utilising the canal network to move around. So hopefully not everyone will be jumping in their cars, but at the same time, we've got car parking to facilitate.
Sure. And with those sorts of environmental issues in mind, what sort of steps have been taken for introducing, say, electric vehicle charging?
So when we, back in 2018, 19, when we were redesigning Castle Key 2, we made a commitment and have delivered north of 5% worth of electric vehicles, which is, my understanding is it's more than Oxfordshire as a whole. That what we did, we put the infrastructure into to increase that up, and in fact we may well be increasing it shortly to 10%. But one of the points of designing the centre was actually to scale up on electric vehicles. If we didn't put them in, we've got a plug and play system that we can add quite quickly without digging the car parks back up.
Thanks, Chris. Now, we don't have an awful lot more time, but I just thought we'd have a quick run around the table and just see if anyone has any final comments. Mitchell, do you have any final comments you'd like to add about our involvement in the project?
Only to say, Nathan, that what is being really pleasing to me is that the council has, there's been shifting sand during this time. At the time the centre was acquired, there was a big empty BHS unit and also closed. Since then, there's been a big empty Debenhams unit. There's been a big empty Marks and Spencer unit. The biggest spaces within the centre, which if one looks at the news and sees the the disappointing stories of these retailers closing, you may well despair, having just gone and spent an awful lot of money on a shopping centre. But in each of those cases, in quite short order, Chris and his team have come up with imaginative other uses to fill that space. I mean, somebody mentioned in the question possibility of residential, and Chris has sort of explained the position in relation to that. But it occurs to me that there hasn't, I guess, been a need to fill space with residential, because there's been most of other users for that space, and that's what's been really pleasing, the way in which those opportunities have been there, and the council, to be honest, have been brave enough to sort of pick them out and pursue them, all credit to Chris and his team for that.
Thanks, Mitchell. And I think finally to Chris, obviously we've lived through very challenging times since 2014. Council has, Mitchell explained, had to deal with all sorts of external factors which have made life quite difficult. I just wanted to focus on you and say, well, what aspects of this project, which from a legal perspective, do you think work particularly well?
I think there's lots of things which went well and went bad. I think for the council during the pandemic, we were not just us in terms of property, but also every member of the council was out working for their community. And the one thing we wanted to do with property was to continue the development and make sure that Banbury was fit for purpose, coming out the back end of this awful pandemic. I think particularly well, in terms of a legal perspective, one of the things which we enjoy and have a great working relationship with Freeths is we work in partnership. When we do have these ideas, Freeths are always at the forefront. Is how does that work from a legal point of view? What does the service charge? What's the impact, etc. So working with Hannah and Mitchell through the shopping centre is understanding from a legal point of view, what can we do? How can we be adaptable? Very much like Lot 29, let's reinvent the wheel, let's try and let's do something different. And Freeths have always been alongside us to help and support. And I think also from a construction point of view, which Mitchell led on CQ2, we had some challenges, and we continue to do that. And again, having a good partner and a good legal team who are ability to think laterally as well as just you know, what's in front of them, and problem solve is key for us, really, and enabling us to come up with these weird and wacky ideas. So.
That's great, Chris. Thanks very much for that. I'm going to wrap up today's session now, but I'd just like to thank the speakers first, Chris, Mitchell and Hannah, for presenting for great presentations, and also to thank the delegates that have put forward questions which I think have probed and tested our panel to the very highest level. And so without further ado, thanks everybody for attending, and I'd like to draw this now to a close. I think the slides may be made available at some stage, but I think that's something we can pick up on later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.